Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the globalist cabal, so we're talking World Economic Forum, the European Union, sort of World Bank, United Nations, as every day goes by, they become closer and closer to a form of sort of super state type integration, and their talking points are increasingly becoming the same, even in the same order, the same language. So they're clearly in the process of merging or attempting to merge. And so one thing I've noticed is how they're sort of talking about how perhaps they intend to deal with the housing challenge or problem in the Western world. So what the globalists have done is they've forced, not asked the people, not got agreement, nothing with the consent of the people. They have forced mass migration of wholly incompatible peoples onto the West, and forced it onto the white Western population without their agreement or consent or a vote or anything like that. Now, all the major political parties all have the same platform. In fact, in Australia, both parties have pretty much an identical agenda for their electoral platform. There's an election coming up, federal election coming up here, and every one of their main points mirrors exactly the globalist talking points, from mass migration to the climate change to you name it, transgender, the whole thing. It's just purely a globalist script, and both of the main parties, in fact, the four biggest parties, all have this same globalist script. It's not an election anymore. It's just they're all implementing globalist policies, and that's your choice. So it's ceased to be a democratic process in that sense. But just looking at the West generally, forcing all these many millions, indeed tens of millions of brown and black peasants into the West has created, obviously a situation of housing, not only housing affordability, but housing shortages. And that's even when you count the Indians and Bangladeshis and Pakistanis that live 10, 12, 15 to a one-bedroom apartment. Even after you've included that, we've still got a real housing shortage problem. Now, the United States and Britain are classic examples of where they really put their foot on the accelerator to get as many non-white people into those two countries they possibly can. The English-speaking countries, by the way, are always the real targets. That was always the real target they wanted. I mean, as well as the other rich Western countries, but those were the crown jewels that the globalists really wanted. So we've got all these people being forced on the West, and again, many millions. And I've mentioned this before to give you an idea. 25 years ago, Australia was like 97.8% white. Now it's 63%. So it gives you an idea as to how huge that change has been. So, but coming back to the housing, and we can see it happening all over the place. Ireland is an example. And the European Union's produced a paper, as indeed has the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. And if you're prepared to pick through and read through some of the more banal type stuff that appears to just ramble and go nowhere, you actually can pick out some little pieces here and there. And one of these is a definition, or an attempted definition, it's not very clear, of how big a house you should be allowed to live in the West. So the globalists have created the problem, and then it has to be the local white populace that has to absorb the cost of this chaos and mayhem that the globalists have forced upon us without our consent. So what they're saying is that basically a maximum of, in terms of the house you're allowed to live in, or dwelling you're allowed to live, a maximum of 2 rooms per person. So if you're a husband, wife, or whatever, 2 people, and you've got more than 2 rooms each, and that, by the way, that's a maximum, they're saying. They really think it should be closer to like 1.4, 1.5, something like that, but allowing for a maximum of 2 rooms per person. Now, it's pretty vague. I don't know, does that include, for example, water closets, toilets or bathrooms? Does that include a garage, or does it include an outhouse or a shed in the yard or something? Like exactly what that includes, and that's vague. That's not clear. But we'll run with 2 rooms for the moment. So that's 2 rooms each. So 2 people had to have 4 rooms. Let's assume it doesn't include the bathroom or the water closet or the toilet or something. So you're allowed a bedroom, maybe an integrated lounge, dining room, a kitchen, and maybe another room for something, maybe a laundry, something like that, and that's it. That's your house. Now, if you come from an overcrowded, dirt poor, basket case country, which is where the surplus populations of the world are, which is where the globalists are drawing these people across to the West. Again, let me state for the umpteenth time, without the consent of the people in the West, then they live already, 20 to a one room place, and so to them, 2 rooms per person is like, whoa, and they get running water and electricity, and they go, wow, this is like whoa. Although when you see the Afghanis arriving in Britain, how demanding they are, that they get the very best of the best of the best, or else we'll get black lesbian lawyers to take the government to court. The government too is powerless to prevent these black lesbian lawyers from getting more benefits for these people. I mean, when it comes to so-called white supremacy, then all the resources of the state are sent to crush it into the ground, even the mere mention of it. But when it comes to illiterate peasants from the third world demanding more, the government's powerless. Well, there's nothing we can do. The courts have said. So coming back to this 2 bedrooms, or two rooms rather, per person. Now, as these various papers ramble on, that I suppose you'd call them sort of more discussion papers, but really they're maps for the road ahead. They say that older white people, where the children, for example, have grown up and are off leading their own lives, they may still have the original house that they had when the children were growing up, and so on. So, and they've lived in that house. And when you get to a certain age, all you've got is the neighbourhood and the people you know, and the things you're familiar with, and those are the things that when you get to a certain age, you draw a lot of comfort from. Nonetheless, the drive is to say, well, if it's only 2 of you and you live in a 3-bedroom house, and maybe it's got an extra dining room or something like that, then that's problematic, as they put it. That's an issue, because you're using up, you damn white fascist Nazi Hitlers, you're using up a lot of space that could go to black, brown lesbians. So, that's a real issue. And because these poor black, brown lesbians, they're a minority, an oppressed minority, and that means by not giving them the space that's in your house, you're oppressing them even more. That makes you a fascist Nazi Hitler. And we've got to do something about it. The state can't allow that to happen, motherfuckers, and we're going to take your house. So there's talk about these people have to be re-educated or moved on. They have to give up that house that the state will either absorb, or they're going to be forced to some sort of combination. So they're talking about giving incentives for these people to move out of their houses. Or their dwellings. It could be a big apartment, for example, but they're trying to get them. They want them to move out, or want them. They see this as a solution to the problem they have created, but really it's just a further additional humiliation and grinding down of white people. That's really what it is. We want your house for these black and brown peasants, and if you don't give it, we will destroy you. That's really the overarching theme here. But they're talking about giving incentives and so on. I don't think it'll work that way. I think they'll say, okay, the government, the globalist controlled government, and all the governments in the Western world currently are globalist controlled. So the globalists will just issue the order, and the people that supposedly represent us will then, oh, yes, boss, I'll do exactly what you tell me. And they'll just go off and they'll say, all right, well, you've got, for example, you've got 7 rooms in that dwelling. We say you're only allowed 4. So you have to take in 3 peasant lodges from the third world, and you have to put one each in your, and all the other resources such as bathrooms and kitchens will have to be a shared resource. That's your option. Now, if you don't do that, we're going to have to tax you for each room that we will say is unused. Now, you might say, well, hold on, I'm storing this, or I use that room for meditation or sewing, or it's a music room. No, don't care. You're allowed 2 rooms apiece. There's 2 of you there. You have 3 other rooms, and therefore we will tax you on those rooms to the tune of $200 a week or $1,000 a month or something like that. Now, very few people will be able to afford that. Bill Gates and the elite, the globalist elites, can afford that. So they can say, well, we're paying the tax too. It's equal, equity, but they can afford the tax. You can't. And that'll be the differentiating line there, that only 1, maybe 2% tops of the population can afford to pay. The other 98% can't. So they'll tax you to either. So you take in the black, brown peasants who will tear your house to pieces. Your problem, not theirs, by the way. So you must have made them do it. You must have upset them. It's your fault, you damn white fascist Nazi. So they'll do that, or it'll be another comment. It's just general land taxation for number of rooms, or something like that. Or it'll be a ratio of people to rooms. They'll find a formula to hit you up with costs that make it untenable. You kind of have to sell. You got to get out, and that's it. So my guess is they'll sort of force a fixed price, and then the BlackRocks of the world will buy them up and turn them into rental properties. I would think it'll go something along those lines. But nonetheless, that's how I see that going, and how I see the possibility of how they'll force people to move out of their properties. They could do a number of other things. For example, they could say, well, you have to make it climate change friendly or something like that, and the cost of doing that climate change upgrade will be punitive, and so but if BlackRock or someone buys the house, they can do all that and it's tax deductible. But if you do it, it's not tax deductible. You have to pay the whole thing, and private owners can't do that. And I think this will be how they sort of force people gradually out of private ownership, which means fewer and fewer people, of course, will have a stake in society or a stake in the future, and that sort of thing. So the negative effect on the economy and so on will be substantial. But that's not, I believe, how the globalists see it. The globalists see that the consumer age, maybe because of nanotechnology or something like that, the consumer age is passing, as we understand it at least. The consumer age is passing, and therefore the relevance that they have in the world now, and the power and the relevance, will similarly pass. And so they want to redesign the world so that all the essentials of life are supplied only by them. You only have a universal basic income. There's a complete sort of dystopia in terms of social controls and social credit systems and so on. So they have complete control over you. So you get a universal basic income from the government, but you better not put a word out of place, or you're going to find that your ration card is going to be cut in half, or your income or your universal basic income will be late, and it'll be a very Kafkaesque type thing, I would think. You'll go to your bank to get the what'll be like credit points or something for spending money at the time, but the universal basic income is deposited. You'll go there, and the income's not there. The deposit has been made, and you'll go to the local government office or inquire, or wait for 6 weeks online for someone to answer the phone. And I don't know what's happened. The bureaucrat will say, no, I don't know. We'll look into it for you. Yeah. I don't think there's a problem. I can't see one. And then it'll be just a number of days, weeks, and so on. And you have to apply for special support for food, because your universal basic income, and that'll be, well, we can let you go we can give you some help there, Billy Bob, with some food, but you are required to attend the globalist re-education course to show more respect for black lesbians. It's a requirement for us giving this out. But if you don't want to go, Billy Bob, that's fine. You know, we understand. You do want to go. Oh, well, here's the voucher for the food. It'll go something like that. It'll be a dystopian sort of future along those lines. So this is not. This is obviously not a desirable outcome, and I think we're heading there fairly quickly. And if you have a look at the various pages, I say the European Union's got one, World Economic Forum's got one, and the United Nations have got a number of papers on this. And what the globalists are wanting is that really everybody has to buy the essentials of life or get the essentials of life from monopolies controlled by the globalists to make it pay and be super viable and super profitable for the globalists. Then they have to bring in gazillions of surplus population from places like India and Africa, so that they have, in England or Britain, there'd be over something like 110 million people would be, and that would make it all the water, all the food, all the accommodation, everything is owned by the globalist cabal, and you have to get your everything and anything you need to survive day to day has to come from them. And if you want to own anything other than the shirt on your back, if you want to own anything or get anything, use anything, your machinery, equipment, that sort of stuff, anything that isn't publicly supplied, such as rail transport or bus transport or something like that, you're going to have to hire from the globalists. So they'll be the only people allowed to own that sort of thing, and that'll be their source of profits and ongoing power and clout and so on. And government already, and the globalists and Western governments have already more or less merged. I mean, there's not a single sovereign government in the Western world now. So that's how I see things going, and that's how I see they'll redistribute housing along the lines of communal thing, where you've really got a bedroom, a small compact bedroom, and then all other resources such as toilet and bathroom, shower, kitchen will all be shared along the lines, by the way, of the Soviet communist model. One of the things the Bolsheviks did, communists, when they took control in Soviet in Russia, was they took over all the houses of the aristocrats, and some of these were big mansions, by the way, and certainly had a lot of rooms in them that maybe weren't needed, but what they did is they took them away and turned them into schools and things like that. And they would pretend schools or sham schools just to make it look like they were being equitable and that sort of thing. But that's what they did. It's very much the communist socialist playbook, this. And I see we're going down the same path, dressed in different clothes, and it'll be other high-minded ideals of, it's for the children, it's for equity. It's for black lesbians. Have you got a problem with that? Do you hate black lesbians? You fucking fascist Nazi. It'll be that sort of playbook they'll do. So, but that's how I see it going. I'll look forward to your comments below, but it'll be some approximation of that, and I think they're on the road already. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.